soon should I call a parent when a student is misbehaving? We answer that question on today's episode. Well, welcome back to the Teach for the Heart podcast, where we tackle teaching challenges from a biblical perspective. This episode is brought to you in partnership with the Herzog Foundation. I'm here today with Beki Jones, one of our Teach for the Heart team members and a Teach for the Heart Plus mentor, and we are answering this question. The teacher says, I teach high school and am wondering what behaviors or grades warrant a call home to a parent. People have suggested I call the parents for even small misbehaviors, but I feel like it seems that I'm complaining about behavior that I could control versus just pure apathy. So she's kind of trying to figure this out, right? Like, when do I call home? Do I wait? There seems to be a little bit of a concern around, what's my job? What's the parent's job? So we're going to dive into this today. Beki, what's your first thought off the top of your head?
My first thought is, even though I'm elementary world, this really applies across the board to all grade levels, in my opinion. And the answer, as with so many things, is it depends. Like, for me, if I have a kid who has a really low level behavior, but it's way out of standard, like it's not their norm at all, I will call way more quickly because I know something might be up. Whereas if I have a kid who has quite a few behaviors and he does a small thing, I'm not going to call. So that's kind of one of my gut feelings is this normal? Or is there something I should be extra concerned about? If there's something I might need to be extra concerned about, I will contact pretty quickly. But as a rule, I don't contact parents for small issues unless those issues are very persistent and are not improving. So that's one of my guidelines.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with that, right? It is situation dependent. But I think really maybe starting by considering, what should parents know about, or why do I want the parent involved, right? And I mean, as believers, we should believe in parental authority, right?
Mhm.
Parents are the single biggest influence in that child's life. They are the ones who have been given God-given responsibility for raising that child. As a teenager, though, the teen is learning to be more and more independent, right? So you have this tension of, yes, the parents should be involved. You should not be keeping things from them, but yet
Mhm.
the teen is becoming more independent. So I would not cease contacting teenage parents. Like you said, I wouldn't even be contacting younger kids for tiny things.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd be doing that, especially for teenagers. I mean, really, one of the things that I think is helpful is recognizing school issues should be dealt with at school as much as possible. That is more logical. That is more how the world works, right? If something happens at work, you don't get in trouble with your spouse, right? It's like this happens where it happens. So as much as we're able to deal with at school, have a school consequence for a school issue, I think that is a support and a help to a parents, right? So they don't need to be contacted for any minor issue. But I think there are times, though, where we should involve them. So we can kind of get into some of that. This episode is brought to you in partnership with the Herzog Foundation. It's a new year, and that means brand new resources from the Herzog Foundation for Christian Educators. Their full calendar of events is now live at herzogfoundation.connect.space. The Herzog Foundation Institute offers free training events designed specifically for educators like you. In partnership with organizations like Answers in Genesis and the Museum of the Bible, these trainings provide hands-on strategies, biblical resources, and practical classroom tools to help you integrate faith and learning every day. And the best part, they are completely free for you and your school or homeschool group. Whether you're looking for fresh inspiration for your classroom or professional development to grow your ministry, the Herzog Foundation is here to help. Find an event near you at herzogfoundation.connect.space. Now back to our conversation.
I think one of the key ones, and I think you're right on there, is first of all, keep in mind, what are your school expectations? Because those are going to vary. So if your school has specific expectations about what happens when you should contact parents for X, Y, and Z, keep that in mind, obviously. So that's one really easy one. But another one to really think through for me is, if I think contacting the parent will have a positive impact on the student, I might reach out, and honestly, I'd be pretty clear with the parent. I'd be telling them, like, normally I wouldn't reach out about this, but I really think Susie knowing that I'm reaching out to you about this will help her make a better choice next time. And again, that's still not for the super low level things, but for things where we're having a persistent issue or there's kind of a decent problem going on here. Even if I don't need the parent to know, having Susie know her parent knows might help her in the future. And so thinking about what impact will this have on the kid can really help.
Yeah, that's a really great guiding principle, and I was thinking, yeah, bigger issues, not necessarily huge, but like, okay, this is not tiny, medium to big, or chronic, right? Like,
Mhm.
I've been working with this, and what I'm doing isn't helping. Those are often good times to bring parents in, and you brought up one reason this can be helpful is sometimes that is helpful to the kid to know my parents. So that really depends on the kind of parent, how involved the parent is, the
Yep.
relationship, but you can often pick that up on that, well, especially in elementary, we only have 30 kids. If you have 120 kids in high school, you might not know that, but that is one reason. I think another reason, though, is when we think that the parents might be able to help. So,
Mhm.
particularly if you're recognizing a change at home might be helpful. The kid needs to study more at home. They seem to be staying up too late and they're falling asleep in class, right? So, if you're recognizing something where, okay, there's something that home that could really make a difference, and I can't deal with it here because it's happening at home, that's definitely a time to get on a call with the parents and try to see if you can work together.
Yeah, I think that's a great call. You did bring up like getting on a phone call with the parent. One of the things that came to mind as I was considering this question is to me, a phone call requires more specific timing. It is more stressful. It requires more careful preparation. So to me, even if I'm going to contact a parent, one of my first questions is, how am I going to contact this parent? Because it
That's a
doesn't
good point.
have to be a phone call. If I feel like I need to loop this parent in, but I don't have the time at the specific appropriate time where they would be available to talk and I'm available to talk and all of those things, I can draft a quick email. Like that is an okay way to contact parents in most schools that in all schools that I've worked in at least. So considering does this have to be a phone call? For some sensitive things it might need to be. But you can also reduce the workload on yourself by making it a quick shout out email as well as an option. So that's something I think that should be kept in mind that can reduce the overload that might happen if you're needing to reach out more often than you think might be best.
Yes, that's such a good point, right? I mentioned phone call as one example. Sometimes that's what you need to do, but right, email communication. Also, I'm realizing there's also multiple layers to this. There's individual communication, but there's also just group communication. And I'm going to deviate from my previous recommendation and saying being proactive in communicating with parents as a group is almost never bad. That is almost always good. And so here I'm not talking so much about like, hey, we're having a problem, although you could, but like just letting parents know this is what's happening. This is something you might want to look out for. Might want to ask your kid if they're on top of this. If that is actually a good proactive way to deal with things and where you're not picking on not that you're picking on them anyhow, but there's no perception of why are they bugging me about my kid? It's just being proactive. And that can certainly go out as email. I'll tell you one other thing with this because we only have a couple minutes left. Also, very important to lead with positive communication. If you are going to be contacting parents regularly about negative things, try to make sure you're also contacting them regularly about positive things, right? And once again, those can be email blasts. The class did great today. I want to shout out so and so and so and so. Or just, hey, your kid did really great. Like quick emails can be one line. I noticed so and so, was really answering questions well today in class. Those things can go such a long way to getting parents like, and you feeling like you're on the same team so that then you do have to make an ask or tell them about something bad. It goes so much better.
I 100% agree. I think that's one of my guiding rules when communicating with families is I want to make sure they're hearing good things about this person, this little person in my class that they love, especially the ones who probably have gone a few years in school, not hearing much. That's good because teachers are busy and sometimes we forget how important that is and the only communication that some parents get is negative and that's really hard. So getting on that same team with them and being like, I love this little person too, yeah, we got problems, but he did this today, it was awesome. That's such a game changer for some relationships with parents, and to really build that up can be so helpful.
Yes. Well, thank you, Becky, so much for sharing your thoughts. Thank you guys for listening. And if you'd like more advice like this, follow the podcast, subscribe, share with your friends. That really is a great help. And then if you want your questions answered, there's a couple ways to do it. You can submit your question to our podcast at teachfortheheart.com/teachertalk. Or if you join us in Teach for the Heart Plus, you can hop on our mentor coaching calls and we go back and forth with questions like this in real time with you, or we can answer them and send you a video. There's all kinds of different options. So we would love to have you join us in Teach for the Heart Plus. You get that mentor access, plus access to all of our best courses like Classroom Management 101. So you can check that out at teachfortheheart.com/plus. Well, this episode is brought to you in partnership with the Herzog Foundation. All views and opinions are our own, don't necessarily reflect those of the Herzog Foundation. I look forward to being with you again soon. In the meantime, teacher, remember, God is at work in you and through you, and he's using you to make a difference. Keep your eyes on him and teach for the heart.